Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. It's May 5th. I'm Dennis Shkroudov and I'm here with Kasper Oslowski. We got a big one for you.
We do indeed. It's going to be a big show today. I've got a few big guests coming on today. We have none other than Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger. He's got a big fight coming up at UFC 173 against Robbie Lawler. We want to chat to him about that fight and also the welterweight picture in general. We've also got Coach Winkeljohn from obviously Jackson's and Winkeljohn's gym. Training guys like John Jones, Travis Brown, and we want to talk to him about both of those guys and their most recent performances. And who else do we have on the show, Dennis?
Well, we got none other than Tommy Toehold. That's right, guys. Tommy Toehold, the internet sensation, one of the funniest guys in MMA. Have you ever heard what Tommy sounds like when he's not Tommy Toehold, when he is himself? Find that out later on the show. You've never heard Tommy Toehold like this. If you've ever watched a Tommy Toehold show, you're going to want to check this interview out. It goes behind the scenes of Tommy Toehold, and you find out how this thing really began. You know, it's been 2 years since Tommy Toehold has become a sensation. Find out how it all happened. You know, I'm excited to have a chat to the creator of Tommy Toehold.
Exactly right. The man behind the computer and behind the cartoon. So that's going to be a really fun one. As always, guys, you can catch us on Stitcher, iTunes, and TuneIn Radio. And for all feedback and comments, let us know what you think. Give us a comment. Subscribe to the channel. We've always got new stuff coming up. We've got big shows planned in the next few weeks. And you check us out on Twitter at Submission Oz. That's Submission AUS. And yeah, let's have a chat, talk MMA.
That's right. Come have a chat to us. We're nice guys. We won't bite. If you're an Australian listener, check out MMA Canvas. You know, we've been doing some great stuff with MMA Canvas. They have some great articles up there, so make sure you check them out. But without further ado, Cass, you know, and for everybody just tuning in now as well, it will be Jake Ellenberger, Tommy Toehold, and then Mike Winkeljohn. If you are tuning into the show now and you are looking for a particular interview, just just scroll through the show or through YouTube, have a look for the annotations, or just simply look out for the times. But Cass, our next guest, to me, is a very, very exciting fighter. I'm very excited to have a chat with him about UFC 173.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a UFC welterweight, and he owns wins over Diego Sanchez, Jay Heron, Mike Pyle, Nate Marquardt, and a brutal knockout over Jake Shields. He is a future contender in the welterweight division. He is none other than Jake Ellenberger. Jake, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure and great having you on. Hey, just to kick things off, we haven't seen you since July of 2003 in your fight against Rory McDonald. Why the long layoff?
Well, you know, there's a few reasons, but you know, I had a hamstring injury around Thanksgiving, which kind of postponed the January fight, and so you know, really just kind of getting over. I had a few months where I had to really do a lot of physical therapy, and it was good though. It was good to be able to focus on other things besides just fight training. Things like get better with rehab and my knees and overall mechanics that I can really focus on. But yeah, it's been a little bit, you know, but I've been doing so much work in the gym, so much sparring, it doesn't really feel like I've really missed. It feels like I haven't missed a beat, so I'm definitely ready for next month.
Now, Jake, you mentioned that you tore your hamstring. You know, we are athletes here at Submission Radio, and I tore my hamstring quite recently. It was one of those situations where it sort of went ping, and I felt it in my leg. Tell us how you tore your hamstring, and what are you going to do in the future to try and avoid such an annoying, debilitating injury?
You know, hamstring injuries are definitely tough to deal with. It's actually the first time I've had a hamstring injury, but it was I did have a small tear. I was actually training at Kings at Huntington Beach. Javier Cordero, one of my Muay Thai coaches, and it was actually after training, about an hour and a half of training. It was a tough day. I was showing. Funny enough, I was showing a few guys some technique with the takedown, and on obviously on the wrong guy, but the guy that I was showing this technique on he was resisting me, like, you know, like when you're when you're drilling or you're showing a move, the other, your partner is supposed to allow you to do it for the purpose of the technique. And I did it a couple times, and then the last time I did it, as I was doing, he turned into me, like resisting me, and made me slip, and kind of like, when your muscles are very relaxed and then they get tight really quick, it created that like static kind of flex on my muscle. So it was one of those things that was really frustrating, but it was one of those things that happened, and it's one of the Brazilian guys that I wasn't very fond of, but we had some words, but we gotta move forward, and it is what it is.
Oh man, I can definitely imagine that being frustrating. Now, speaking of your training and moving on, you've been around. We've been seeing you obviously at King's. You've been a staple at Rain MMA, and you've been doing some training at Glendale Fighting Club under Edmund Taverdian, who trains Ronda Rousey, Manny Gamburian, and Victor Archinian, and many more. What's the main thing you've improved on since training there?
I've gotten to know Edmund over the last year or two, and just good, really great person, a very smart guy. We kind of just were really talking philosophy and strategy and stuff like that before I ever decided to work with him. But we were actually at the Gracie Academy doing some jiu-jitsu training with Henry and Hida and Gracie and then Ronda, and I started doing some technique with Edmund, just kind of messing around, and it just really kind of intrigued me. But I've seen how much the more I got to know him, the more I could see how intelligent he is with combat sports, and having trained world champions in boxing and an overall very great strategist. So I really started going up. When he invited me to come up to Glendale, I really was, for me, just focused on sharpening certain skills. And the more I trained, the more I was kind of certain things that I really needed to focus on that I haven't in the past. And we just clicked. Some people you really click with, and Ed's been one of those guys.
I want to also ask you, obviously, yeah, he does sound like a great trainer. Obviously trains Ronda Rousey, among others. Will you still be training at Rain MMA with Mark Munoz, or is this a permanent move?
No, I am. I'm still at Rain. I'm still at Rain 3 days a week with Mark and all the guys there. It's another great gym, great facility. That's definitely more of the focus with transitions and wrestling and positioning and stuff. So I'm still very much a part of that, and it's actually been growing quite a bit. That there's a lot of new faces that keep coming into the gym, and the team's growing. So it's been great. It's basically been my main focus is a lot of, and I live a lot closer down to Rain. I live in Orange County, so I'm still there quite a bit. And I'm up in Glendale more and more now too.
Now, Jake, obviously Edmund was a big part of the Ultimate Fighter when Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate were coaches. He came off a little bit like a jerk on the show, obviously. We had TJ Dillashaw on last week or the week before, and he said that the producers of the show can cut it up any way they'd like to make people look any way they'd like. He obviously mentioned Edmund's a pretty cool guy, but can you expand on that for us? What's Edmund really like? Because I think a lot of people kind of have the wrong impression of him.
Absolutely. I agree. I think, at the end of the day, if people got to realize that this is a reality show, this isn't, take, for example, accepting fighters into the Ultimate Fighter house. Like, it has nothing, a lot of it isn't to do with your skill set. It's more of, we want to make a reality show. And, it's, unfortunately, in my opinion, it shines a bad light on the sport. I wouldn't say completely, but it does. You're trying to make this a legitimate sport that people from the outside that don't know anything about, that can can accept this and not become as, this isn't a human cockfight, if you will, but there's certain things about the reality show that does not shine a good light on the sport. But I completely agree with what TJ said. I was actually on the show with Mayhem and Diz being work coaches, and I got to see a lot of how it worked. And same thing, they can record. They're going to record 24 hours a day, but as far as what they show, it's whatever the producer wants. So, to be honest, I didn't see the show. I didn't see Edmund on the show. I just basically make my judgments off of how my interactions have gone, and he's a great guy. He's couldn't be a nicer guy.
And now, Jake, you mentioned that you don't think it's great for the sport. Let's say UFC 173, you beat Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald or Tyron Woodley win their match at UFC 174. Dana approaches you and says, "Look, Jake, there's this opportunity for the Ultimate Fighter. You can coach against the winner of UFC 174, and the person who wins that fight will win a shot at the title." Now that you've kind of mentioned you're not that interested in the reality show, that it does kind of seem to you that it's not very good for the sport, would you still be open to being a part of it in the future?
Yeah, sure. I'm open to the idea, but again, all I care about is getting the world title. I will most definitely beat Robbie Lawler on May 24th, and sit down with Daniel Lorenzo again and see what they want to do. But I'm open to the idea, but it's not really a priority or a goal to be. No. But again, I do enjoy coaching. I do like that act. But guys just like what I was doing and still developing, still molding. I was an input of everybody. So I do think it would be a great opportunity from a coaching standpoint. I would enjoy it.
Now, I wanted to ask you, I'm assuming obviously you watched the fight between Robbie Lawler and Johny Hendricks. When watching that fight, what were your thoughts, and what would you have done differently against Johny?
Well, I was actually surprised. The fight was close. It was back and forth. I was studying mostly on how these guys react in different things that I can focus on from a tactical standpoint, because I'm sure, well, I was certain I would fight one, if not both guys at some point. But they're both powerful guys. They're both power punches. They're both a little bit flat-footed. They're very similar in the way they fight as far as moving forward. I didn't. There's some good takeaways I had especially for now that Robbie and I are fighting. But I was surprised in. There was a point where I thought the fight was going to be over, and it wasn't. And then the fifth round, it was pretty tight going into that last round. But I do think the decision was correct, even though it was a very close fight.
Now, you also we did hear that you picked Robbie before the fight. A lot of people are obviously picking Johny Hendricks. He was the favourite. Why did you pick Robbie?
I did. I think, just to be quite honest and be frank, I've just never really been impressed with Johny. He had a lot of success in the sport of wrestling, and so he's very mentally strong, but at the same point, he's still developing as a fighter. In my opinion, I thought Robbie, when Johny can't be the bully, typically with guys who fight in that sense, if they can't be the bully, it's hard for them to succeed. But I had Robbie. I going into the fight, I thought Robbie had a good shot at winning. And it was a close fight, but I just, like I said, I've had some great takeaways for myself, and fighting Johny eventually after I beat Robbie.
Very nice, Jake. He seemed like a man with an ace up his sleeve. But let me ask you something about Hendricks. GSP was a long-term champion. Everybody thought he'd be around for a long, long time, and then obviously he retired and went
Mhm.
away. Now Hendricks is champion. Do you think Hendricks is a long-term champion, or do you think this is going to be a case of like the light heavyweight division, where everybody's going to be passing the championship around until maybe you win that title?
Yeah, no, I think he did. He looked great against George. Definitely one of the guys who had a great fight against George. But, it's tough because I think there's so many variables going into each fight that the intangibles that people really don't see. And I've heard there's been things with George, like whether it's personal or outside of the fight or whatever it may be. But there's always certain variables that people can't see, whether injuries or family stuff. And it's always interesting though. And that was a great fight, and people thought I was crazy because I did think George won 3 of the 5 rounds, and it was a very close fight. At the same point, Johnny does deserve credit because he did have a fantastic performance against George. But I don't see. No, I really don't. There's a lot of talented fighters in this division. I don't see him being champ for in 6 months. To be honest, by the end of the year, he won't be champ.
Interesting. And speaking of George, what was your initial reaction when you first heard about not only him, giving away his title or stepping away as champion, but also about his second ACL injury? What were your first thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really felt for him. That's very disappointing. Such a tough injury to deal with, and then for him being the second time and obviously the older you get, the harder it is to keep competing and as competitive as this sport is getting. I mean, it's just going to be extremely tough for him to come back. But I know he wants to. So it's what fascinates me is what really motivates someone to fight. I mean, a guy like George who's has had as much success as he's had, and it's not a financial reason, and it's not he's been the world champ. So he must just really love to compete. So, but yeah, disappointing to hear about his injury though. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah, that's a real bummer, and it's not like our hamstring injuries. It's a serious one. But I was gonna say, Jake, we were speaking to Martin Kampman. It was a few episodes back, and he was actually a little bit upset that GSP was gone because he always wanted to fight GSP. Now, I know you're a competitive guy and you're a gamer, and you love to measure your skills up against the best. Was that one of the reasons why you were a little bit upset that in the back of your mind you always sort of wanted to fight GSP and see how you went against a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, for a few different reasons, as a fan of the sport, and as a competitor, I've definitely wanted to meet George at some point. So I don't know. As of right now, it's not going to happen. But like I said, it is such an unpredictable sport, and there's so many intangibles that people don't realize going into a fight, and a lot of times, winning and losing a fight is not really. It's not really measured on what somebody did wrong more than what the other guy did right. So I think, eventually you're gonna, look at Anderson Silva. You're gonna get caught. I mean, this is the toughest sport. This is the toughest sport in the world, and to be honest, to see George having succeeded and been at the top for as long as he was is quite amazing.
Now, speaking of your current fight, you originally booked to fight Tarek Safadine at Fight Night 34. What was your initial reaction when you heard about the fight change and that you were going to be main eventing a pay-per-view?
It was, I've talked to Dana about it, and really, it's hard. I mean, I'm a guy. I'm a guy who'll fight anybody. It's tough when you have a guy like Jarek who's not necessarily going to get you another step closer to the title. I mean, he's a very tough fighter. But again, it didn't really. Injuries are so tough to deal with. I don't. So from understanding like where he's coming from was like I feel for him. That sucks. He had another injury, but now when Dana called me about the Robbie fight, I was excited. Absolutely, he's the number 2 guy in the world right now, and it's funny as much as I've grown in the last year. I have absolutely no doubt. And then, some of the guys that I've been sparring with, I have world champ boxers, guys that I've been learning so much from, and I couldn't be more confident in getting my hand raised.
Now, Jake, obviously you've got this big matchup with Robbie Lawler at 173, and then Robbie McDonald's versus Tyron Woodley at 174. A lot of people are saying that the winner of the Tyron Woodley-Robbie McDonald fight might get the next title shot. But as you've mentioned, you're versing the number 2 guy here, and you've had some amazing victories. I mean, this division is up in the air at the moment. No one knows anything for sure. Do you think you deserve the title shot over those guys if you have a dominant victory at UFC 173? And sort of make a case for us. Tell us why you think that.
Well, I'm completely focused on beating Robbie. It's really all I've been thinking about, to be honest. But yeah, when I beat Robbie, there's not really a question. This guy is number 2, and and a lot of people arguably think that he won the fight. Again, that's things that are out of my control. All I'm focused on right now is performing on May 24th, and that's all I can do. It really doesn't even. I could care less about the Woodley and the fight with Rory. They're both great guys, but I mean it's crazy how fast things change, people's perspectives change. It's like you got a guy like Woodley who. I mean, you kind of hurt it. Kind of getting hurt. That's disappointing. That stuff happens. It's like you can't give a title shot to a guy who's, who when. Yeah, I mean, if I'm fighting a guy and he gets hurt in the fight, I mean, I didn't beat him, and I wouldn't feel good. Sure, he got hurt, but I didn't submit him. I didn't knock him out. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't really pay much attention to the other guys. It's my focus is on doing. I got to do my job, and when I do that, it's just a matter of time.
I think a lot of people thought that about the Tyron Condit fight, and I think the fact that Robbie Lawler came so close to beating the current champion, if you beat him, I think that's definitely going to catapult you up there to a title shot, if not extremely close. But speaking of this Robbie fight, what are the biggest problems that Robbie Lawler presents, or challenges, and what do you do better than Robbie Lawler?
Robbie's. I've actually known Robbie since before I started fighting. We're kind of from the same area. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. He's from Iowa. He's pretty straightforward. He moves forward, and he's dangerous. He's powerful. What's going to separate me is just being faster, my speed. I'm sparring guys who are unbelievable hitters, and that are much faster. I assure you, they're professional boxers, and a couple of them are world champs. So is there anything that stands out? No, there's not. But all I know is I'm 100% ready and couldn't be more focused. I'm looking to be first to finish. The first to start and the last to finish. So really just putting an exclamation point on this fight.
I was just going to ask you also, the Rory McDonald fight, that would have been a learning experience for yourself. What do you think the biggest difference is going to be between your last fight against Rory McDonald and your upcoming fight, obviously at with Robbie Lawler at 173?
So much has changed. I mean, really having started working with Edmund and focusing on distance management and how guys react has been huge. I mean, little things like, and Rory, he played it safe. He's a smart fighter, and he kept it, he kept the range. But yeah, there's things I can take away from it, sure, and move forward. It's things that I, you need to adjust to that. That's really the hardest thing to do in this sport, is make adjustments on the fly. I mean, you could be the best fighter in the world for one round, but if you can't do that for 15, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, there's a lot of good takeaways I can take from the Rory fight. I mean, I know Dan and the UFC wasn't very happy with it, but at the same time, it takes two guys to fight. He fought a smart fight, but as far as now, I'm a completely different fighter. Had a lot of done a lot of things differently. Focused a lot more on my footwork, on my defense, and just more movement. So I mean, it's a night and day difference, no doubt.
Now, you did mention that Dana and Lorenzo weren't the happiest with that fight. Tell us a little bit about that fight. Did they say anything to you afterwards? What was your personal thought after that fight? What do you think went wrong? Not in the sense that you lost the fight, but the fight itself being a little bit strange compared to what people thought it would be like.
Yeah, no, the fight was a dud. It was not at all what it was built up to be. But at the same time, it was like I said, I don't know. I really can't. There's things that I could, that I'm absolutely could do better. But at the same time, it's like it takes two guys to fight. He didn't want to engage, but there was some small things that I was dealing with going into the fight too. That and I had a long talk with Dana after the fight, and he was like, he's always been cool. He's always been easy to talk to, and you got to make adjustments. Got to make adjustments moving forward, and he's really a no nonsense kind of guy, which is what I like about him. So I'm completely past it, and I haven't even really thought much about it besides things that I can take out of it moving forward.
Now, speaking of it takes two guys, you and Robbie have been the first two fighters to undergo the Nevada State Athletic Commission's new drug testing policy, which will now take urine, blood, and carbon isotope testing. What are your thoughts on the new testing, and do you think there's enough testing in MMA?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not real familiar with it. I'm not really sure what it means. But yeah, I have no problem with it. I think it's gonna, I think it's gonna be a lot. If they do move forward with it, like they say they're gonna do, I think a lot of people are gonna probably more. I'm sure a lot more people are gonna be, getting in trouble. But I think it's great for the sport.
Brian Stan was recently in an interview, and he said even though there was no concrete proof that a lot of people were on certain things leading into their fight, as a fighter, fighters talk and people know that, this person might be on something, that person might be on something. Is that true as a fighter? Even though there's no concrete proof, have you ever gone into a fight in your career thinking, oh man, this guy's got a bit of a reputation in the fighter community, and he may be on something or something similar for your teammates?
Yeah, absolutely. I've fought guys who've been confirmed on things, and I knew for a fact they were on stuff. But at the end of the day, here's my view. steroids or any type of performance enhancing, it's not going to make you any mentally tougher. That's for sure. That's what I do know. And that being said, it's you can only do what you can do. You know what I mean? If you can only control what you can control, and I know I can control myself and how I prepare, and just mentally being ready to fight. And I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on things, and then I know in the past that there has been some guys that I have known that were on things, but it didn't change the outcome of the fight. It didn't change the way I fought them. You know what I mean? It shouldn't change your psychological perspective on how you approach the fight.
And obviously, so much of MMA is obviously the mental side of things, and obviously, the guys that aren't mentally strong, they usually fall to the side anyway. But there's obviously some pictures floating around. It was you with Dana White, big smile on your face. You signed a brand spanking new contract. Now, I want to talk to you quickly about fighter pay, because it's something there's a lot of different opinions out there on. Depending on which fighter you talk to, you're going to get a different story. Tell us about your new contract and what exactly made you so happy.
Well, specifically, there was some things that I wanted to do more of, and things that I requested going into the new deal, and they made it happen. It was not even a question. So, basically everything that we wanted, they agreed to. They agreed to what we wanted. As far as money, as far as pay goes, and there's even obviously there's a bonus too to fight for the title, and a bonus to win the title. So, all good things. So I couldn't. It was easy. It was an easy deal to do, to be honest.
Awesome, Jake. Now, we're going to do this awesome thing called the tap out round in a second. But before we do, I just wanted to ask you about your brother, Joe. How's he doing? Obviously, he was pulled off the card at the very last second, UFC 172. That must have been tough for him, considering it was his UFC debut, and he would have spent quite a long time preparing for it. Now he's a UFC Fight Night 44. How's he going mentally?
He's doing good. He's, it's one of those things that happens. It's out of our control. I mean, I've had it happen to me personally a couple different times, but he's been training, and he can really take all that. Excuse me. He can take all things he's been doing and use that as momentum moving forward. But he's doing well. It's just now it's a different guy, different date, but it doesn't change the way. And they paid him too, so they took care of him. All good things moving forward,
Well, it's awesome. It's good to see the company doing that for your brother as well. We definitely look forward to his upcoming fight at UFC 44. But now it's time for the Submission Radio Tap Out round. So this is like the bonus round. This is the getting to know you round. We're going to fire off a bunch of questions at you. And pretty much answer them with the first thing that comes to your mind. Similar to word association, but you can go a little bit more in depth than word association. Are you ready, Jake?
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, Jake. UFC uniforms. What are your thoughts on them?
Don't really care. Don't like it though. No.
All right, we heard that you will be in the new X-Men movie playing the part of Juggernaut. Any truth to the rumors?
Possibly. That would be great.
You heard it here, folks. Now we've come up with some choices for UFC uniform ideas. You have to choose the one that you like the most. Here they go. A lavender scented cloak, which is 100% recyclable. A fancy hat with bells and a propeller and a small flap on the back to avoid sunburn and for extra sponsorship room, or a UFC horse that you can ride onto the octagon, and if you win the fight, the horse comes into the ring and you feed it hay.
Sorry, you kind of were cutting out. I didn't hear the last part.
Okay, well, it's a UFC horse that you ride onto the octagon too. The sponsors are actually on the horse, and then if you win the fight, you get to feed hay to the horse in the octagon.
Oh, let's do that one. That sounds good. Can I keep the horse?
Everyone always goes with the horse.
That's two for two. Martin Cadman was also a big fan of the horse. Now, everybody these days is either making a movie or playing a superhero. If you could play any superhero from any comic, who would it be?
The Juggernaut, yep. Absolutely. The X-Men.
Now, you and your brother are huge WWE fans. I'm pretty sure I've heard an interview with you where you guys used to wrestle all the time in the basement and muck around with that. Which WWE wrestler, apart from the ones that have made the transition, do you think would do the best in the MMA?
That's a tough question. I mean, when I was growing up, I was always Jake the Snake, and Joe was Hulk Hogan, and also a big fan of Randy Savage and Ric Flair. But as far as actual in MMA, man, that's tough. I think CM Punk would do really well.
Apparently he trains a little bit. I'm not sure. He always the Gracie stuff to the ring now, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
That would
he trains at the academy.
That would definitely be interesting. Now, we're big fans of MMA Roasted, and you're always on there. Why is Adam Hunter always calling you a virgin?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, here's the thing. It's always been a joke because I don't like to talk about my personal life, especially not in the media or on the radio. And every weekend, Adam, the first question he asks me is, "Did you hook up with anybody? Did you get any? How was your weekend?" That kind of thing. And I was like, I didn't. I just, I was at the beach, and really, I initially was dancing around the question, and then he was like, "This fucking guy," and they started making a joke that I've never been with a girl, and then it just became this really ongoing funny thing. So it's continuing. The things people are sending him, the pictures that they're making are. It's pretty funny.
Son of a gun. All right, well, good. We've got a couple of comebacks for you. Actually, they're jokes, and of course, because your name is Jake Ellenberger, they are burger related. So, you ready for the jokes?
Let's do it.
Okay, how did Burger King get Dairy Queen pregnant?
Oh, I don't know.
He forgot to wrap his Whopper. And here's one that you can use on Adam. Next time he gives you shit, just say, "Well, Adam, why is your mum like a Big Mac? Because she's full of fat and only worth $1."
Like a Big Mac. That's funny. I'll use that.
And finally, Jake, last question. How will you be winning your fight at UFC 173 against Robbie Lawler?
I can't tell you exactly, but we'll just say this doesn't go to a decision.
Ooh,
all right.
He's a mysterious man with an ace up his sleeve.
We like the sound of that. Tune in to find out, guys. It is May 24th, UFC 173. Get it on pay-per-view. And if you are in Australia, it is May 25th. Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. You're more than welcome anytime on the show. And good luck in your fight.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Australia is the one place that I have not been, and I really want to go. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, we're definitely not stopping you, and if you came down here, we'd be more than happy to have you. So definitely something else that we'd be excited for. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show, Jake, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Jake Ellenberger, the co-main event from UFC 173. Very excited to see that fight. And also, if you guys haven't checked out our interview with TJ Dillashaw, he's in the main event of UFC 173 fighting for the bantamweight title of the world. Make sure you check it out. Potential champions there, Cass.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake Ellenberger, he could be potentially winning the big one soon. So it's great to get him on the show, and it'll be great to have a chat to him after the Robbie Lawler fight. Definitely a fight that I can't wait for.
We've got a big guest coming up now, and he's not typically a guest that people are used to seeing on Submission Radio. We usually do get a lot of coaches and fighters, but this is a special exception today.
Yeah, absolutely. He's basically an internet sensation. You can check him out or you may know him from the Tommy Toehold Show. Now, we actually have the creator of the Tommy Toehold Show on the show, and we're going to be talking to the man behind the cartoon.
Yeah, that's right, guys. If you haven't seen the Tommy Toehold show or don't really know what that show is, here's an example of some of the great work that Tommy does.
Hey, Tommy! It's been a while, but I'm back! It's like I never leave! Congratulations, Andre, that's great. It's a great story. I'm excited to see your first fight back. Yeah, it's going to be all the fun. Hey, you want to play some of this guitar rock hero? It's so much fun. You play the songs like it's a real guitar, but it's not a real guitar. How crazy is that? Yeah, Andre, I don't think anybody's played that game since the I see what's going on here. You're stuck in 2005, aren't you? I love 2005, Tommy. The Pussycat Dolls were still together, don't ya? Dukes of Hazzard come out with Johnny Knoxville's my favorite movie, and I'm still champion of the world. I have great hair back then, too. I scare everybody with my big punches and my scary teeth guard. It's good times.
So there you have it, guys. Just a small sample of some of the things you find on the Tommy Toehold show. Definitely go to YouTube, check it out. The Tommy Toehold show, not really that hard to find. But we're going to have him on next, and we're going to be chatting to him about a whole bunch of things.
That's right, Cass. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, strap yourself in. Our next guest is one of the biggest and funniest guys in the MMA industry. He's a YouTube sensation. Ladies and gentlemen, on Submission Radio, we have Tommy Toehold. Tommy, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, it's awesome. Absolutely great to have you, Tommy. We've got a whole bunch of questions for you in regards to your show. I guess the burning question will be, how did it all start? How did it all come together?
Well, it was sort of an accident. I didn't really plan on being a cartoon. What happened was I was an English teacher, and the school that I was working for had to make some budget cuts, and they let go of a lot of the young teachers because that would make the most sense to get rid of the young and ambitious teachers instead of the older ones. And they, as I was looking for other work, I've always been a huge fan of mixed martial arts, so I decided to start doing just a little something on the side for fun, and that's what the show ended up being. I really had no intention of it going where it went. It wasn't even a cartoon, actually, initially. That actually came from necessity. I didn't have the proper equipment to video myself, so I was forced to make a cartoon, and then actually that took it in the direction that it ended up going, where it was a more humorous take, and then the fake interviews started, and it all just sort of snowballed. I wish I could say that there was some master plan behind all of this, but it was very much by accident.
Damn it, no master plan. Okay. Now, Tommy, obviously your show is, a huge hit with MMA fans. I think it speaks loudly about, the kind of culture that MMA has worldwide. I mean, your show is loved by MMA fans all around the world, no matter, the culture or the country that they're from.
Yeah, it's really kind of mind-blowing. I'm not used to the whole thing. Kind of threw me off in the first place. Anytime anybody recognizes the show or anything like that, that kind of freaks me out. But even talking to you right now, in Australia, it just blows me away because, for the show to make that kind of reach, to have that sort of reach, it baffles me. I can't really wrap my head around it. Every single day, there are moments where I'm just like, how did this, even get to where it's at? It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show you've got fans literally all over the world, such as us in Australia. When you obviously began the show, you said that it's not what you had envisioned of what it became. What were you hoping for it to become? Was it just like a video blog of basically or an audio blog of yourself talking about MMA?
Yeah, it was going to be like a video blog. It was going to be me in front of a camera, and it was actually called Pulling Guard. Which is a terrible name. And it was really just me talking about, things that were happening in mixed martial arts. There's a lot of vloggers that will sort of review fights and things like that. And that was kind of what I had in mind. But because of the equipment issues, I thought, well, I'll make a cartoon. And because it was a cartoon, it just didn't really lend itself to serious analysis. So I sort of forced myself to give it a little more humorous take because I thought, well, if it's a cartoon character talking, nobody's going to take the cartoon seriously. So I need to kind of make some jokes. And that's sort of where it went. But yeah, it was going to be more of just analysis and probably would not have lasted more than a couple weeks. And I wouldn't be talking now.
Now, Tommy, you're a bit like the Batman of MMA, whereas no one knows who you really are. I suppose it's one of the biggest mysteries in MMA going around, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. But have you ever been around, MMA fans or MMA public in general, and they're talking about, the Tommy Toehold show, and it's sort of, your show, but you can't say anything about it, and it's kind of like, hearing what people think about you without actually being there.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I went to a fight, UFC fight, and I was looking around the crowd, and I saw a woman wearing a Tommy Toehold T-shirt, and I wanted to go over there and talk to her. So, I was all excited. I saw this woman, and I'm starting to walk over to her section, and I stop, and I'm like, wait a second. She has no idea who I am. Like, I can't just go over to her and say, hey, it's me, Tommy. She's not going to know, So I've sort of backtracked on that. It is a bit bizarre. It's really bizarre when you run into people who talk about it and they don't know that you're Tommy. Like my family and my close friends, they know that I'm Tommy. But when I, interact with other MMA fans, which I have gone to events and things like that, and I hear somebody mention Tommy, it's just kind of bizarre to me. It's sort of like you're invisible in the room. It's really cool. It's definitely a different experience. I've met a few fighters as well, and revealed my identity to them, and that was an interesting situation. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's cool being this sort of this man of mystery. I really like it. I think I'm going to keep it going as long as I can.
Awesome. And obviously you mentioned the T-shirts. We've seen quite a few fighters. We saw Ronda Rousey wearing a T-shirt. That would have been pretty awesome for yourself. How did the T-shirts all come about?
Yeah, that was wild. Someone approached me, a guy who was a business owner, and he came to me with the idea of T-shirts. I'd wanted to do T-shirts, but I didn't really have the capital or the means to do so, and this gentleman did. So I was able to partner with him, and we were able to get the shirts going. And then, I didn't really have any sort of marketing budget, so I started, reaching out to fighters, seeing if I could get them into their hands. And some fighters just got them on their own without me even, mentioning it. It was very cool. It was still bizarre to see pictures of fighters with T-shirts. Again, it's all I can't even describe how. Every day I'm like, I was an English teacher like 2 years ago, and now, you've got people wearing shirts and all these other things. And it's just, it's a really cool experience. And the fighters that have done it and helped me out, it's been awesome.
Hey, Tommy, obviously, like you said, 2 years ago, you were an English teacher, but were you ever at a point when you first started out where you thought, maybe this wouldn't work out, maybe this quite, wouldn't be where it's at today? Have you ever had points where you, just frustrated with the whole thing?
Yeah, it was, I guess because I never really expected it to go anywhere. The early stages when it wasn't really doing much, I was just like, oh, okay, well, that's not a big deal. It's, not my job. It's just this thing I'm doing on the side. If nobody sees it, it's okay. It was for me. And then I would say around 3 or 4 months in, there were starting to be some developments where I started thinking this might actually be something I could do for money. I didn't think necessarily for a living, but I thought maybe it could give me some kind of side income. So at that point, I started taking it more seriously. And yeah, there were definitely ups and downs. I worked with a company called Crave Online, and I was with them for a little bit. And then transitioning back from there to YouTube, I was a little bit concerned about how it would all work out. But yeah, in the long run, it's been a very smooth ride. There've only been a few hiccups here and there where I thought, wow, this isn't good. But I have such great fans. They really keep it going, and they keep me honest. If I don't get a show done, they are harassing me. So it's very cool. But yeah, there've definitely been a few moments here and there, especially really early on, where I wasn't 100% sure if this thing was going to make it.
Well, that's really awesome to hear about the fans. Obviously, with business, it's all about supply and demand. And if obviously the demand is exceeding the supply, that's nothing but good for yourself. They actually played your show on UFC Tonight. Tell us about that, and was that obviously a big highlight for yourself?
Yeah. UFC Tonight was very cool. I did about 10 segments, and that was just probably the most surreal moment of all as far as the experience so far. You know, Chael has always been a big supporter of the show, a big fan of the show. He's actually done the show a few times early on in the early part of the first year, and he was able to help, you know, get that going as well. And the UFC and Zuffa. It's been great. Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, everybody in both Fox and UFC has just been tremendous to me. Yeah, that was the thing that got me was I was watching the first broadcast they had it on, and they had sort of like cut a little promo pre-commercial to let you know what was coming next. And they were talking about my segment, and to hear this, you know, professional announcer guy who, I don't know how much he gets paid, but he was sitting in a booth and he had to say Tommy Toehold. It just, I don't know. It just kind of hit me. I was like, wow, this is just crazy. Like, I couldn't stop smiling. But yeah, the Fox stuff was really cool. I'm hoping to do more in the future, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it must have been absolutely music to your ears when you heard him announce your name. I wanted to ask you, so as far as like things that Dana White and the Fertitta brothers did for you, how exactly did they help you out? What did they do for you?
Well, I mean, they've just all been very kind in allowing me to make fun of their, you know what I mean? They've definitely helped. Well, Dana's tweeted out the show quite a bit. You know, he's tweeted out several episodes. Yeah, I would say Lorenzo's also, you know, he's tweeted out some stuff too, and just they're backing me on social media and, you know, kind of garnering the whole Fox thing and getting that rolling. And, you know, yeah, I would say they've helped in terms of getting the word out, and then, you know, helping get the Fox stuff rolling.
You know, Tommy, us being MMA journalists and being in the industry ourselves, you know, there's a fine line between asking the wrong questions where people get offended. Obviously, Dana and Lorenzo love your show, but do you ever think about when you put a show together, geez, you know, this might ruffle a few feathers when I put it out?
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely a fine line. You know, I try to not be offensive. Generally speaking, I try to respect the fighters, I guess. So even though I am poking fun at them, it's usually surface things. It's not really things that necessarily, you know, are going to dig at their profession, I suppose I would say. So I don't really try to make fun of necessarily the fighters and how they're doing. So if a fighter has a really tough loss, you know, I'm generally not going to, you know, beat that guy down on the next episode. I might make a joke about the fight itself, but I'm not going to, you know, criticize what they do. So it's definitely it's a thin line to walk, but the feedback I've gotten from fighters and from other people in the world of mixed martial arts seems to be I'm walking the line well. If I do go over, you know, I definitely don't want that. So yeah, I definitely am conscious about what I do, and if I'm being honest, I've definitely pulled back in the past on jokes or bits that I thought would maybe be funny, but you know, they might have been too offensive to the parties involved, so I kind of just let it go.
Yeah, and just speaking about that, obviously when you started the show out, you might have not thought that all these fighters, you know, would be listening to it, that so many people would be listening to it. So I suppose you had a lot more freedom in the kind of jokes that you could do. Now that, you know, you are closely monitored by guys in the UFC, by guys like Dana, I suppose it's also, you know, about putting out the same content with the same laughs, you know, staying true to your original fans, but you also have to cater, you know, to a more wider audience as well, and be careful in that regard. Do you find that difficult?
No, I think I've always sort of tried to walk that line. I don't think I've ever been, you know, concerned about an episode that I've done even in the past where I thought, well, maybe that was a little bit too much. I feel like I've been trying to do it respectfully the whole time. So it really hasn't changed too much, honestly. There are a lot more eyes on the show. You know, there's fighters that watch the show. Like you said, you know, a lot of people are seeing it in the industry itself. So yeah, it's definitely something I guess maybe I think about more, but I don't think I've really had to adjust the show very much. It's just not really in my nature to be mean-spirited, which I know is funny because my show makes fun of everybody, but I guess it's coming from a respectful place. It's hard to describe. I have a disclaimer in the description of the videos, and it basically just runs down kind of my thoughts on mixed martial arts. And I have utmost respect for anybody that's going to walk into the cage or anybody that's involved with the industry in general. These people all work very hard, and at the end of the day, I don't want to, try to bring somebody down. That's not really what I'm doing it for. So, I guess maybe there is a little bit more thinking about it because there are so many people watching, but the show's been relatively the same, I think, since the beginning.
Now, you've obviously come a long way. The show has recently hit over 100 episodes, so congratulations on that one. And so far, of all the shows you've done, what would you say has been the most fun show?
Oh, wow. I really like... Well, first of all, thank you. Yeah, 100 episodes, that was crazy. I didn't really think I'd ever get there. I guess if I had to say, I really enjoy I call them Triple THS shorts. So they're like, they're segments without Tommy, essentially, where I sort of do these skits or things. So I had one that was called GSP's Day Off. And it was all of the things that George would be doing in his retirement. This is right after he had said he was going to walk away. And, he's out dancing. He goes and visits Nick and tries to reconcile with him. Just stupid stuff where I can take these personalities and throw them into these ridiculous situations. And it's, it's just goofy and it's a lot of fun. I recently did a Star Wars parody episode, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I really like those sorts of episodes. I think the thing I'm most proud of, and I guess I still get a lot of joy out of, is I did a Punch-Out video. So it was in the style of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out from the Nintendo.
Yep.
And it was Anderson Silva being knocked out by Chris Weidman. And I didn't think I had it in me artistically to be able to pull that off, but still one of my favorite things, and I really enjoy it.
We were actually watching it right before the show, before obviously, the show. It was really good. You did really well, and it was really awesome. Speaking of actually doing goofy things, this is actually a world-renowned thing that we're going to do right now. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round, as rated in GQ magazine. Previous contestants of the Tap Out Round have been Randy Couture, Rich Franklin, Uriah Faber, TJ Dillashaw. Jake Ellenberger just did one, and Coach Wink is on next after you, and he's going to be doing his second one. Are you ready?
Oh, wow. I don't even know what we're doing, but I'm so ready for this. Let's go.
So we'll be asking you a bunch of questions. It's kind of like word association. So it's basically quick answers from yourself. This is the getting to know you round.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Ariane's greatest project outside the UFC. What do you think it is?
Her music career.
Okay, if you could put any celebrity in a toe hold, who would it be?
Oh, Justin Bieber.
What's the best thing about making fun of John Jones?
Doing his voice.
So you got Justin Bieber in a toe hold. Would you let go of the hold once he tapped, or would you crank until the referee had to pry your hands apart and then pull out of the John Fitch fight?
Yeah, no, I'm going full Paul Harris on that. I'm not stopping.
What does Anderson Silva sound like when he's ordering a burger at Burger King?
Hey guys, so I was hoping you could give me the Whopper with cheese.
If you had to choose between a lifetime of being trained by Fedor, Anderson Silva, and John Jones, or go on one date with Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano, and Misha Tate, what kind of suit would you wear to dinner?
That date sounds really complicated. I don't know if I would be able to entertain all three of them at the same time. You know what? I would probably wear a tuxedo shirt.
What's the weirdest place you've seen a Tommy Toehold shirt worn?
Oh, wow. In a garbage can.
If you had to, and we do stress you had to, get a fighter tattooed onto your body, who would be the fighter and where? And death is not an option.
You know what? I would get Brian Ebersol, and I would get him on my back. It would be a giant mural Brian Ebersol and the manscaped arrow in his chest hair.
Nice.
What do you think is Roy Nelson's biggest secret?
That he secretly enjoys everything about Dana White.
Now, the Jake Shields versus John Fitch fight seems to be coming together. Who do you think should sponsor the fight out of the following options? Trojan, Durex, KY Jelly, or Maury Povich?
Oh, God. Oh, man, I wasn't expecting that. Let's say Maury Povich. Let's do that.
MMA is a boring name for the sport. Which one do you prefer more? Here we go. We got MMSCFOC, Mixed Martial Skill Challenge Fight Opportunity Championship, the GPSFL, Gentlemen Playing Scallywag Fisticuffs League, or MMA, Martial Mixed Ants.
You know what? Fisticuffs makes it sound really classy. Let's go with that one.
Yep. Fantasy fight between a heavyweight and 4 flyweights, and you're Joe Silva. Who's in the fight?
Oh my goodness. Jeez. Okay, well, heavyweight, I think just for the pure spectacle of everything, since we're trying to get a huge size differences, would have to be Bigfoot Silva. I just think that would make the most sense. And man, flyweights, they're so tiny. I'm picking 4 of them.
Yep.
4 flyweights. Okay. I am going to go with, well, you got to have Demetrius Johnson. He's the champ. I think that makes the most sense. Let's go with John Dotson. He's entertaining. Let's go with Ian McCall again, another fan favorite. If we're trying to sell tickets here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then let's throw Joseph Benavidez in there. That sounds like, I'm telling you what, that would be a pretty good pay-per-view. I would buy that.
Everyone would buy that, especially in Russia where they're doing like 60-on-60 tag team matches.
all I'm saying is if they want to improve their ratings on Fox, it's an idea that Dana has to consider. Okay, on to the next question. Tommy, finish this flow of words. Octagon, octopus, Olympus has fallen.
What in the world? Let's see. You know what? I'm going to say gooftopus. I used that word today with Dana White. Gooftopus.
Awesome. Now, the Tommy Toehold Show is making big waves. We hear that you'll be taking over commentary for David Edinburgh in a documentary about endangered butterflies. Any truth to these rumors?
100%. I'm all about the endangered butterflies. We gotta save them.
Tommy, why is Dennis Holman so sexy?
Wait. What did you say? Did you say Dennis Holman?
Sorry, I said, Tommy, why is Dennis Holman so sexy?
Oh. It's got to be the hair, man. It's got to be the ridiculous blonde Val Kilmer in Top Gun hair.
Oh man,
Yep.
ever since his fight against Brian Ebersol, the image unfortunately is still ingrained in our minds. We haven't been able to get that out of there.
I think we're tapping to the tap out round ourselves today.
All right, and now let's assume hypothetically, Tommy, you had to be whisked away by the Witness Protection Program, and you had to start a new life under a different name. Now, the Submission Radio marketing team has come up with some alternative names for you, and you got to pick the one that you would lean towards the most. Ready?
Okay, yeah.
So we've got Ron Renaked, Chris Kimura, Hank Heelhook, or DJ Easy Dick.
I like Hank Heelhook. That's a good one. That actually flows really well. I could use that on the show right now.
Tommy, we've had a few fans write in there asking, apart from the T-shirt line, is there a Tommy Toehold lingerie line coming out soon?
There needs to be. As soon as you said that, I just got envisioned panties with Tommy's beard, making the triangle at the bottom. I think that's perfect.
Nice. Dennis, do you have any more questions for the tap out round?
That is it. And I think, Tommy, honestly, that was a good tap out round. I think that tap out round might have made us tap ourselves. That's how tappy it was this time around.
I think Tommy Toehold broke us in the tap out round. And I think it's probably the most fun we've ever had in an interview.
Nice.
Guys, you can follow him on Twitter at Tommy Toehold. Check out the show, the Tommy Toehold Show. It's on YouTube. Go on his website. It is TTHS.com. Get yourself a sexy Tommy Toehold shirt worn by many, many fighters. And subscribe and show some love, guys. Tommy, you are absolutely welcome on the show anytime.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. That was a lot of fun. That was honestly some of the most fun I think I've ever had doing a radio show.
Well, you haven't heard it first. We're going to use that quote on every flyer we ever create. Tommy, it's been a pleasure. Guys, stay tuned. Mike Winkeljohn is coming up right after this.
What's up, fight fans? I'm the reason mixed martial arts is banned in New York, Tommy Toehold. And you're listening to Submission Radio. Let's do this shit!
Our next guest in the show is a bit of a regular on Submission Radio. You know, he's one of the greatest trainers in the world, an amazing striking coach, a champ in his own right. We have Mike Winkeljohn on the show. Mike, welcome to Submission Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. I feel like we're a couple of guys weekly catching up for coffee. It's been so long since we've had you on the show. But coming off UFC 172, Jon Jones, how would you rate his performance?
You know what? I give him a B plus. You know, everybody thinks that he's got an A in there, but B plus. You know, I really wanted to finish. I think he's very creative, but I know he's capable of so much more. If he was the average guy, he'd get an A. But John's not the average guy. He's capable of so much more.
I was just gonna say that's pretty scary, considering most people considered it a really beautiful performance, including ourselves. And I was pretty sure you were going to give him like a 10 out of 10 or an A plus, and the fact that you said B, it's pretty close.
No, maybe 8.5 out of 10. I can't do it. You know, I can't do it. I think, you know, I really wanted to finish. I asked him at the last round of time to finish him, and I was really hoping for it because John's capable of all those things, but we just didn't get that time. Glover's just probably tougher than anybody's ever fought. That's one tough guy.
Well, let me ask you then. Last round, what was the game plan of the last round, and what was John going to do for the finish? What did you want him to do?
Well, same thing. I was really worried about Glover's uppercut inside. I was not overly worried, but I said, you know, that's all he's got on the inside for you really that I have to worry about. Don't go back into that space where you can start swinging big power shots. You're smothering with the small shots because you own him with elbows, and he can't generate much energy except for his uppercut. So with that being said, I wanted to avoid the uppercut. I wanted to hit him hard enough with the elbows that put him in some other place, so that when we step back, we'll be able to find some clean shots with a little bit of longer strikes.
And Wink, you know, the rating that you gave Jones, the B plus stuff, it sounds exactly what the teachers used to say to me back in high school. Unfortunately, I was getting a C plus back then, but that's all right. I was going to say, some of the stuff that we see Jones do in the fight, like that new elbow that he did up against the cage, it was the back elbow, I believe, and some of his unorthodox techniques. Is that the kind of stuff that you guys practice in the gym, or is that just Jones actually improvising in the fight? Like, do you see these moves before the fight begins?
We practice those in gyms. We actually have codes for a lot of things that we do. And John's like a video game. I'm blessed I get to work with the kid. He listens real well, and we call out things that we see. I call it things I see pretty much, and he does those things. I have a good training coach with me, Brandon Gibson, that's in on it. We have a big playbook of all these different plays, all these different strikes and different setups, and the way we're faking takedown and coming up with their elbow, or faking takedown and coming up with something else, or faking the punch and shooting a takedown. It's a great team effort in that John's willing to go through repetition with us in the gym, so that when he's in a fight, all of a sudden things just start unfolding, and it's all him in there. We give him ideas as the fight goes on. If he sees it, he uses it. He actually wants us to coach him more. He wants us to keep on the ideas and keep throwing out ideas. It keeps him, you know, stimulated while he's out there, and then who knows what he's going to come up with sometimes. You and Barney Stinson, the only two men I know that own a playbook. Yeah, Brandon Gibson, myself. It's funny. Jon Jones told me a long time ago, Coach, I want to take this to a level nobody else has ever had, and I want to have our own playbook. and that's what I'm calling the playbook. It was actually John Jones' idea a long time ago to actually write a lot of these things down and take it to a whole new level. And my team has always been involved in a lot of codes, but John took it to a whole new level.
Now, in talking about some of these techniques, I mean, they're pretty wild, like that elbow up against the fence. So a lot of the techniques that Jones already does, like holding on to their wrists and throwing that elbow. A lot of the kicking techniques, the stepping kick, the side kick. Where do you come up with these techniques? Obviously, you know, a lot of this stuff is the first time that we're seeing this kind of stuff in MMA. What kind of thought process do you go through when you sit down and come up with these kind of techniques for John? I mean, it's almost like coming up with techniques for a superhero in a game in a way.
Well, I don't play any video games, so it definitely didn't come from that. But you know what? A lot of it is I came from a big Kempo background, and it's funny how over the years I used to tell people to do the kicks. You always see people, they call them the oblique kicks. Of course, don't call them that. To people's legs. I've always been trying to get my guys to do it, and they always said, coach, that's karate stuff. And now it's mainstream. People are doing it everywhere because John Jones uses it so much, and you're seeing more and more fighters use those type of things. And I think it's just, if it works, use it, and think out of the box. People are always thinking they have to be Muay Thai, wrestling, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. But really, at the end of the day, it's you got to find out what works. And the unorthodox sometimes works much better than the orthodox.
And just on that, obviously, you mentioned Kempo. Is this the next level of MMA? Do you think this is where MMA is moving into? Obviously, a lot of karate techniques, like you mentioned, a lot of that stuff's kind of been blocked out. Not a lot of people think that it may be one of the most useful martial arts in this day and age. Do you think that's where MMA is headed, to techniques like we see John do in the octagon, or do you think it's more based on?
Oh yes.
Sorry to interject there, but also, or do you think it's more based on having a guy like John Jones who can do those techniques? Obviously, I probably couldn't do a spinning elbow. I could barely do a 1-2. So do you need a spectacular athlete to pull these techniques off, or is it something that can apply to anyone?
It always helps when you have a spectacular athlete. But I'll tell you what, I'm seeing people a lot of times they're reaching down to people's legs and spinning with back elbows now. It's become more and more common. They're blocking high roundhouse kicks, and they're starting to throw the elbow. They're starting to see what John's done, and it's becoming mainstream, like I said. So I don't think it's just belief in. I think once people see success in a technique, they try to follow and do the same.
And I think one of the other sort of proving factors of John Jones's greatness and him being a student of the game, the way John uses his length. I mean, there are and there used to be quite a few long range or long fighters in the UFC. You've obviously got Stefan Struve. He's got extremely long range. Kendall Grove, 6'6" in the middleweight division. You got Jessamine Duke as well. They all have long range, and not a lot of them really use it. I guess the question is, how hard is it to stay long?
Well, you know what? I actually sometimes have a hard time keeping John long because he wants to get in there and engage so much. I think John could win fights all day long and never get hit if he wanted to, but he has a tendency to want to prove himself. I think it's just giving people the right techniques and understanding the opponent's footwork, understanding your opponent's abilities, and knowing how and where to be to shut him down and to hurt him.
And just speaking on that point, obviously in the first round in his fight with Glover, he did let Glover get in nice and close and have take a few shots at him. Was that a part of your game plan, or did you think at that point, John, you need to stay a bit longer than that? You can't just let Glover get in there that close.
We have a tendency in our gym to have people attack people's strengths. So by going into Glover's world and beating him at what he thinks he can beat John at, just mentally beat the guy up. So that is part of our game plan. But honestly, John did it much faster and much sooner than I actually thought he would, and he spent more time in that area, in that zone I call it, than I would have preferred. And that was all John Jones, a lot of it. I wanted you to stay real long or real close in the fight and not spend too much time in that mid-range where Glover can generate all that power.
Now, obviously, Glover's a really tough guy. Prior to John Jones, he was really knocking people out, dominating guys, and John Jones basically just outclassed him. Do you think John Jones has hit his prime or not yet?
Not yet. Not even close. I think, we're going to see, I keep telling people that Anderson Silva type of power on one strikes is coming. And because of that, his wrestling is going to come back to a high level. I think we haven't seen that yet. John doesn't have a lot of stand-up time experience. A lot of these guys that have the striking skills have come from outside. John's young to the striking world, and he's on a path to being the greatest.
Now, in that Glover fight, obviously Jones put that shoulder crank on him, and not the crank, but that shoulder move up against the fence, the armbar type move, where it did. Glover say hurt his shoulder at the start. Glover did look a little bit hesitant throughout the fight. You know, he did stay in that area where Jones could hit him. I think his game plan for the whole fight was just to hit Jones with a couple of punches and finish the fight. Do you think that Glover should have switched up his game plan during the fight, seeing as the way it's playing out wasn't working out for him? I mean, he's got so many skills in so many different areas.
I think looking back on it, he probably wanted to, but you know what? When you get hit a lot and he's having to deal with all the distractions and things coming at him different angles, he's going to go back to what he knows. It's like, you hit a wrestler real hard, they have a tendency they're always going to want to shoot on you because that's what they know. I think Glover just has always been the tough guy, and what he does is he wants to catch you with a real hard punch and or use his strength to take you down. So I think it's really hard for him to change game plan because of the fact that John was all over him.
Now, with John, obviously, with every dominant performance, it's always fun to sort of talk about who the next challengers are and, who's going to be challengers in a division that sometimes people think might be, not necessarily thin, but, John Jones is just really crushing guys. And Phil Davis is obviously someone who became very outspoken prior to UFC 172, and he was campaigning for that shot. What were your thoughts on Phil as a threat to Jones prior to the fight against Anthony Johnson, and did they change after his fight?
You know what? Phil, he's a wrestler. He's a great wrestler. He seems like he needs to be working a little bit more on his ability to use his strikes to set up his wrestling. He had a hard time closing that gap and dealing with Johnson with the stand-up. And I think he would have had even a harder time with John Jones. But you never know with a guy that can wrestle at that level. He's scary in so many places. I think he had a tough nut that night, but we never overly confident against any fighter. But I wouldn't not bet against John Jones fighting anybody right now.
And Rumble Johnson, he's also someone who made a big return to the light heavyweight division, another addition. People aren't quite yet considering him a contender. I think he's got a lot to prove. But what do you think about Rumble Johnson possibly in the future? Do you think that he presents any challenges for John Jones?
Oh yeah, you know what? He's very athletic, very strong, and explosive. And I think there's no doubt he can hit John and hurt John in different places. There's a lot of guys out there that can. But same thing as fighting Rashad Evans or Rampage Jackson or the guys that every other high level guy John's done is John's a student of the game. He'll beat him at his strengths, and he'll definitely stay away from his strengths when he wants to and beat the heck out of him. Beating on his weaknesses. That's just what John does. He's very smart in the cage.
Wink, speaking of being smart in the cage, I was going to ask you about another technique that John implemented at UFC 172, which was him keeping his hands out near Glover's face. Is that another technique that you guys practiced? And also, do you think it might be a little bit dangerous, obviously, due to the fact that it can cause a lot of eye damage in the ring?
Yeah, that can't. I guess that's not something we practice in the gym. In fact, he'll do that a lot of times when he'll admit it. It is very distracting. And we will throw elbows from there. So I take that back. I guess we do a little bit of it, when we're practicing. But as far as eye pokes, he usually has his palms on people all the way, and when the people move in, he comes up to a palm, which is a legal strike. And I know you can't go there. It's honestly just a thing that's just inherent in what John does. He likes to keep people away, put his hands out there and show people his hands. He has no intent to hit people in the eyes. I know these pictures about people's eyes, but I don't Glover complain about getting hit in the eye, but I never really saw any swelling out of Glover's eyes. But, again, I wasn't there, and I can't ever, say it's a good thing to get hit in people's eyes. I know that I've lost an eye, but it's definitely nothing we practice in the gym.
I wanted to ask you, as far as Jon Jones keeping his reach out there, one of the benefits of this is that you can throw elbows very quickly. It's sort of like an old school Muay Thai stance. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, most definitely. If someone puts their arm in that center or below you, you can just smother them through the elbow. It's a great technique that's been used, for centuries.
It seems like you're bringing a lot of these techniques back, so it's very interesting to see Jones fight. Now, we did have Javier Mendez on the show last week, and he said that out of everybody that Jones has fought, Daniel's going to be the one that's going to have an issue with his reach. And then he said that's not going to be an issue getting aside. Is not going to have an issue with his reach. That's not going to be an issue getting aside. He's going to get inside, and then he's going to take Jones down, and then we'll see what happens from there. Do you think Daniel Cormier has what it takes to get past Jones's reach?
I think he's very athletic and very strong, and so, yeah, he could. With that being said, that doesn't mean he wins just because he got through once in a while, and he will get through once in a while. He's going to take a lot of damage on the way. He's going to get worn down on the way. He might get knocked down on the way. But when he gets in there, oh, well, big deal. We saw what John does with Glover inside. It's not the end of the world for Jon Jones. He's very good inside in the clinch. He can trip you from anywhere, and he can hurt you from all kinds of positions. I think Cormier's got a tough night ahead for him because of all the strikes that John has. Of course, Cormier is great. He can lift anybody. He's got such a strong core in him. He's always scary, but just by getting to John doesn't win you the fight by any means.
And while we're talking about potential fights, I know last time you were on our show, you mentioned that Jon Jones isn't really considering heavyweight at this moment. I think he's got a lot of other things on his plate. But obviously, as fans, it's fun to sort of fantasize about potential fights. We asked Javier also about a potential fight with Cain. And Javier's thought process is basically that Jon will definitely pose some problems for Cain, but Cain's going to pose more problems for Jones that he's ever faced in his whole entire life. I guess it's one of the things that comes from going to a new division. What do you think? What do you think Jones's strengths would be in the Cain fight?
We definitely own him at the longer ranges. Inside Cain, it's his relentless pressure. Coming off his levels and doing what he's doing, pushing him up against the cage. But again, John's an anomaly in that all these things that Cain's been used to doing with people with his pressure. He's just going to fall into a lot of traps that John has. And, he's a real strong guy. He'd gain some weight a little bit before he gets to the heavyweight division, and that would be a hard fight, but John will find a way to win.
Now, Coach Wink, going back to UFC Fox 11, Donald Cerrone, obviously, one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, had a very dominant victory over Edson Barbosa, and now it looks like it doesn't look like, but it's been confirmed that he's going to be fighting Jim Miller on July 16th. What did you think of Donald's performance on UFC on Fox 11?
Well, mentally, Donald had a great performance. He had decided that no matter what, he's fighting a guy that's such a great striker. He was not going to back down. And that's what I think about when Donald's winning the fight. He took some damage, but mentally, he was going to win the fight. And Cowboy's Cowboy. That's what he does. And, Barboza ran into a really hard jab, and sometimes he gets his right. But all that set up because he couldn't beat Donald mentally. And Donald decided he was going to win that fight, and he did.
And I think that's one of the key things that you need if you are ever going to become a champion. It is such a mental battle. Now, Cowboy's obviously very beloved by the fans, and he has come many times to being very close to getting that title shot. And Dana White always says things like, Donald Cerrone, as long as there's no title implications, he can win any fight. As a coach, what do you think is missing it, and what does Cowboy need to finally get over that last hurdle and put himself into title contention and win that big one?
He needs to bend his knees. He needs to not always have to be the Cowboy and pretend you're the toughest guy. Love Cowboy to death. He's his attitude is so straightforward, like maybe we bounce off each other sometimes, but he should have been world champion already, and I think with a few adjustments, he will be the world champion.
And just on Cowboy, he wants to fight quite a lot. Actually, I believe, and clarify if this is true or not, but did he actually come down to UFC 172 because he thought there might be a chance that he'd be able to fill in for a fight?
He mentioned that he actually offered if there was a fight available for him. I think he was what was he? I don't think he was throwing Donald. He was water skiing somewhere, and they called him up, and he came to watch the fights. That's just Donald. You know, he's so tough mentally that he needs that break, and I think that break does him good. If he doesn't have a break and if he's not just enjoying life, he has a hard time fighting. But when Donald's enjoying himself, he'll fight anybody.
So just on that point, Wink, can you tell us what is the motivation behind Donald wanting to fight so frequently? Obviously, some people have said it's monetary reasons, and other people have said, it's just the way Cowboy is. Has he told you why he's looking to get so many fights in a year?
He hasn't told me specifically, but I think Donald likes his toys and he likes his money, and we all do.
Yeah.
Not that I have any toys, but you know what? So there's no doubt a lot of it's money, but a lot of it's also motivation. Donald, I think he gets bored if he doesn't have a goal to move forward toward.
Now, another thing we want to talk to you about, obviously, UFC on Fox 11. It was a very interesting card in many ways. I think one of the big ones was how heavily touted Travis Brown was and how easily people thought he'd steamroll through Fabrizio Verdum. And that didn't exactly happen. Tell us what went wrong in that fight for Travis.
Well, I'm not sure I really want to talk about that fight because it definitely did not go the way I thought it would. You know what? It was fat Travis. I don't know who that guy was. That wasn't the Travis Brown that I know that I've seen fight or the fight in the gym. And fighters can tell you they have those nights. And the Travis Brown was back. That wasn't Travis. You know what? He ran out of gas quickly. He hurt his hand on the very first punch. He never, I think, busted his hand before in a fight. And so all that played its toll on him, And for whatever reason, and I won't speculate on those, but that wasn't Travis Brown at all. It was just one of those nights where you just can't let go, you can't engage, you can't catch your breath. It could be a little bit of the fact that he was a favorite in a lot of people's minds, and that may put too much pressure on him. I'm not sure, but I know Travis is definitely one of the most intelligent people in the world, and he will figure it out and be back.
I'm sure it will be. We won't mull on this fight. One thing I wanted to ask you though, in the Overeem fight, Travis came in. He looked so much smaller than we've seen him previously. In a good way, he was a lot more leaner. In this fight, he seemed a little bit bigger. How was Travis's preparation for the fight? Did everything go according to plan, or were there injuries or anything like that?
Well, yeah, everything went to plan. He might have been a little overtrained, and there was some small injuries. There was some injuries, but there's no excuses. I don't want to say about those excuses. He definitely had injuries, but even with the injuries, that wasn't the Travis Brown that I'm used to seeing.
And speaking about Verdum, did you recognize the guy that you saw in the octagon? I think this might be the best version of Verdum we've ever seen. I don't think a lot of people even realized Verdum was capable of that kind of striking.
Yeah, he did very good. I think I can't take anything away from him. He kicked the shit out of Travis standing up as well, and that was not to be expected. But again, that wasn't the Travis. I think Verdum was better than he's ever been, but we should have been able to shut that down. So I'm just real disappointed on that one. But I don't know where to go with it other than I know Travis has got a great future and we're going to figure it out. A lot of us made mistakes by letting him overtrain and probably could have not had so many injuries in camp. So I got to take a lot of blame on myself for that. But he'll be back. With Travis coming back after that performance, obviously he suffered the hand injury, the rib injury, and I believe he even might have broken a bone in his foot. When do you expect Travis to come back? And is that frustrating for Travis, to have such a long layoff after a performance that, he'd probably be keen to get back in the ring as soon as he could to rectify that performance? Is that tough for him as well? And when do you expect him back? Well, I'm sure he's got 6 weeks for the busted hand. Bones take a while, ribs, going to take a while before he can start really going again. But if I know Travis, he'll find a way to do other things. He'll always stay in shape, so he's always doing some kind of cross training. So I can't see it taking longer than maybe 4 months for him to get back. Just as Travis Brown, I know he's really motivated now, and basically what he told me was someone's going to get their blank kicked. And and he looked at me like it wasn't just the fluff you get from some guys when they're acting tough. I know he meant it in his core that he's going to fix whatever went wrong in that last camp and in that fight and go forward.
Great. Well, we absolutely look forward to it. Now, speaking of heavyweights, another big addition to the UFC roster is Andrei Arlovski. He's back in there after quite a while of not being in the UFC. How exciting was that for you guys?
Andre is just a great guy. I just got done working out with him right before I started this interview, and he's just a guy that you think is going to give you that meat. I like to say he's a character. The guy's a character. He's always got me in stitches. He's and he does things that you don't expect. Great individual. He loves his son. So with that being said, I want to help him even more. But Andre can hurt people. He's so athletic. He hasn't been using his athleticism in the past in his career when he's getting all his losses. He's getting back. He's getting his feet underneath him. He's starting to explode more. And so we're on a good run. So I'd like to see Andre, pick it up again and go forward and live his dream.
You said he does things that you don't expect. What sort of things?
As far as the joking around stuff, well, I'll walk in, I'll say, "Hey, Andre, smile," because he's always acting grumpy. He goes, "Coach, don't tell me how to feel." It's very hard to explain, but Andrei Arlovski is that guy that I'm not even sure what kind of humor to call it, but he's quite a character and very well liked. It's really interesting because you wouldn't expect that by seeing the guy. That's for sure.
I was going to say, we've got a lot of people from the Eastern Bloc here in Australia, so yeah, we definitely love that dry humor.
He's just something else.
And his opponent, Brendan Schaub, he's quite a difficult fighter to prepare for. And obviously, you said you guys were just working out before. Has the camp begun for Andrei Arlovski? And what kind of game plan are you thinking about for this fight?
We just started yesterday. We haven't even sat down and officially put together a game plan yet. I'm going to watch some more tape this weekend. I've worked with Brendan Schaub before in the past, so I know a little bit about him. I have watched him fight, but I haven't studied him for Andre. That's going to be what I'll be doing this weekend a little bit. And then Andre and I will watch some tape early next week and put our heads together and decide. But I think that Brendan Schaub is great on his jiu-jitsu. I think he's scary in some places. He's very athletic. He can take people down. I remember back when he was in our gym, I was amazed at some of the shots and different takedowns he had from different positions. He was a great scrambler and really athletic. I'll tell you what Andrei Arlovski got is he's got the drive and the toughness to put pressure on anybody in the world. And I think that might be a big part of this fight.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing Andre in action against Schaub. Now, Coach, I'm not sure if you remember, but it's time for the best part of the show. It is the world-renowned GQ magazine calls it America's latest craze. It is the Submission Radio tap-out round.
Okay. I'm ready, guys.
It's not a
I'm never ready, but okay.
It's not a competition, but I think you won the last one. Dennis, do you want to kick it off?
Okay, here we go. Now, Coach Wink, you're an amazing striker and a striking coach, but do you do much grappling, and how good are you?
I usually do grappling every day almost with Greg Jackson, Christopher, and All-American wrestlers, so I'm okay. I guess I'm not really a white belt, a little bit better than being a striking coach.
Okay, so he's being humble. Now, were you a part of the training for the John Jones entrance dance, and how do you rate his efforts?
You know what? I was a little disappointed in it. He was a little off on some of the rhythms, and I was in the background. He goes, "Coach, I know what you're going to do. You're going to put your hand on the head and be disappointed in me." And I actually tried to do
that. Now, Wink, is it difficult as a trainer when you do have a stacked card full of fighters and you have a big loss and a big win on the same card?
Very tough, very tough. You can't get excited about your fighter that won when the other fighter's got to fight still. Or a fighter loses, you have to be careful what you say in the locker room. And I can't leave smiling unless all my guys win.
Can the MMA glove be modified to stop eye pokes?
No, I think it's going to be tough. I think you start changing the angle of the glove maybe a little bit. It might force people's fingers down, but I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think maybe bigger penalties for those that do poke people in the eyes.
If you could change something about the rules or regulations in MMA, what would you change?
12 to 6 elbow.
Yes, I thought you'd say that.
Being a world champ kickboxer yourself, do you watch Glory, and do you think kickboxing can make a resurgence in the mainstream?
I'd love to see Glory and kickboxing make a resurgence. I do watch a little bit of it. I'm a little bummed out that there's a lack of footwork out there that you see in MMA, but I really enjoy the sport.
Tell us the truth. If you weren't a professional fighter or a fighting coach, what other sport would you be a professional in?
Other sport?
Yep.
Golf or frisbee.
Nice. What music does Coach Wink play in his car and in the gym?
AC/DC.
Have you ever seen Greg Jackson being stressed? He always seems so calm.
Daily.
How often do you get a break? You always seem to be preparing for a fight.
Maybe one day a month.
And final question, when are you doing a seminar in Australia? You know, us Australians want to know how to throw crazy elbows as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, I do a seminar in Australia. Anytime I can get out there and take my family out there on vacation, I'd love to go. But I don't think I'm popular enough to make enough money to make that happen.
Well, we'll have to change that.
Yeah, we'll get the Australian fans on it. With their help, I'm sure that'll happen sooner than later. Guys, CoachWink.com, and follow him on Twitter at MMA Coach Wink. Always interesting stuff, and it's always a pleasure having you on the show, Coach Wink. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Mike Winkeljohn, you know, one of the greatest coaches in MMA, definitely pushing the change. He spoke to us about how he's using Kempo to evolve the style of MMA. And, you know, now he's a two-time guest of Submission Radio. So it's almost like he's in the Submission Radio family.
He is. He's in the Submission Radio Hall of Fame. And who would have thought the guy whose opponent is John Hackleman is using Kempo. So there's never a dull moment with Mike Winkeljohn. And you're right, he's on the cutting edge and the forefront of evolution in MMA. So always great to have his thoughts, such a revered coach, and have his thoughts on fighters. But I think at this point, it's pretty much a wrap for another week.
That's right. We're going to put a bow on this one, guys. Thanks for tuning in. It's always lovely to hear your comments and your thoughts. Thanks for all the great feedback we've gotten over the last few weeks. We have some big stuff coming up over the next few weeks. So keep an eye on the Twitter. That's, of course, twitter.com/@SubmissionAUS. Check out our Facebook page. Cass, what was the URL for that one?
Submission Radio AUS. The YouTube URL is Submission Radio AU. And, of course, check us out on Twitter. Stitcher, iTunes, and TuneIn Radio. We're everywhere.
I know, that's right. We're all over the place now. We do release exclusives from time to time, and we do get fans emailing us, you know, a little bit distraught because they missed out on an exclusive when it came out. The best thing we can tell you is subscribe to our channel. It's Submission Radio AU, not Submission Radio AUS. That is our old channel. Our new channel is Submission Radio AU. Subscribe to us and, you know, be updated on every show that we do.
We'll have another big one for you next week. Till then, peace out, MMA community.
Take care.